Back when Matt Reeves was promoting The Batman, the first movie in the series, he was talking about, or he was certainly asked about what other villains can we potentially see in future installments. And of course, in the movie itself, we see references to like the Court of Owls, for example, with the Riddler sort of having this whole video package air on the Gotham News network, and referencing the history of Gotham and its affluent families, and then placing the blame squarely on, or not the blame, but the target squarely on Bruce Wayne for the last part of the film. But in his promotional tour, he was asked like, "What other villains are you considering?" Of course, fans have wanted to see like even more fantastical villains, like let's get Mr. Freeze back in the fold, like except not like very cheesy, like with all the puns from Arnold Schwarzenegger, but like maybe something. He's like more, maybe he's a serial killer who freezes his victims, But one of the ones that he was also asked about was Hush. So there's been a rumor going around recently speculating further about maybe Hush could be the primary antagonist either in the Batman Part 2 or certainly in one of the upcoming, because it seems like they're committed to at least a trilogy. And if the second one doesn't like completely, if the second one doesn't flop, which I don't think it will, like if it makes anywhere close to or if not more than the first movie, then we are going to get at least a trilogy. So what do you think? And can you give me a little more insight into what this rumor is that's been going around recently about Hush and the Batman Part 2?
So it looks like that I believe it was Jeff Snyder
Mhm.
was teasing that like there's a rumor mill going around, reporter Jeff Snyder on the Hot Mic podcast. There's been whispers that Hush is might be the villain for the next film. Although Reeves did say he was interested in doing Hush, not necessarily for the next film, but for a film. But the fact he said that, like, I like Hush, I want to use Hush for a sequel, and then on top of that, we're hearing some sort of whispers. Obviously, take it with a grain of salt. That maybe Hush will be the villain has a little bit more substantial like nature to it, because the director himself mentioned it. So that's certainly an interesting tidbit. And I think Hush does work for this world that they're going for because I feel like it is heavily, heavily inspired by, at least in my mind, the Telltale series. It has like that, like where it's kind of grounded like the Nolan films, but it still feels like it has those
A
fantastical
noir
comic book
elements.
elements.
Yeah.
Yeah, noir, like those darker comic book, like very much like Scott Snyder's New 52 run,
Yeah.
going back to Court of Owls, of course. So you have that. Barry Keoghan was the Joker in that deleted scene that was released a couple months after the film. So it's like that we have all of this. So I mean, the villain could be anyone. I believe Clayface was also kind of part of the rumor mill about using him in a sequel, whether he actually is the giant clay monster that he became later on, or if they are borrowing from the original appearance where he was just a discount Phantom of the Opera knockoff, just a random dude in a mask.
Hmm.
Whatever they do, I trust Matt Reeves because the Batman, while maybe not as amazing as I thought it was going to be, I was still a big fan of it. It did a lot right. It set up a lot of interesting things, like the Penguin show that's going to be coming out on Max. Um, so that could, like, again, sort of that world building. But I think Hush could be a really good. That was probably got the most teases in addition to Court of Owls. Hush and Court of Owls were probably the biggest ones where that's the future of this Elseworld universe, and I'm excited for them because I think both could be done in live action really well, and I think Matt Reeves would be the man to do it because he definitely has a proper vision for this sort of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's any of those villains, I think he could, given what he did with the Riddler, I can see him doing a lot with any of these villains, even if it's just the Court of Owls. And since they've kind of put the groundwork in already, logically that might become like some. I mean, it doesn't have to be. Certainly, it could be the Penguin. I mean, they definitely set that up, and we don't. I don't think the Penguin series is meant to sort of be the culmination of his story. You'd
Oh
imagine
yeah,
they'd want to do a proper like movie where he is the primary antagonist, almost sort of like how Black Manta in the first Aquaman movie was sort of the secondary villain. but to sort of set him up so that in a future installment he would become the main
The main
antagonist. And it
villain, yeah.
looks like that's what exactly what they're doing with the Lost Kingdom later this year. So yeah, I trust Matt Reeves to bring in any number of these villains. Maybe he'll bring in multiple villains and do a pretty good job with it. I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to speculate on and even maybe pick out our favorites. But ultimately, what matters is what Matt Reeves decides to do, and I'm sure he's continuing to work on the script now that the writer's strike is over. And
Mhm.
hopefully, once the actor's strike is over, we can get some news about getting this second movie into production soon, because it's gonna be one of the biggest. It is one of the biggest things on the DC slate coming up, even though it's an Elseworld story. It's probably something that people are looking forward to as much, if not more, than even Superman Legacy. So, guys, let us know in the
Indeed.
comments below. Who are the villains that you'd like to see? Maybe you'd like to see multiples. Maybe like in the first one, we got the Riddler, we had Penguin, we had Catwoman, who's depending on what version of the story you're looking at, maybe a villain, maybe more of an anti-hero, a love interest. Like there's I'm sure we're gonna get multiple like we got Falcone, of course. So the usual, all the usual Batman suspects, if you will. Um, who are the new cohort of villains that you'd like to see in the Batman Part Two and maybe even Part Three? Is Hush the one that you would like to go with? Let us know in the comments and like and subscribe for more DCU content like this. Of course, we'll be back here talking about it all and all that and so much more in the weeks, days, months, and hopefully even years to come.